Last week we talked about the overconsumption of yarn problem that goes around in crochet, but this week I wanted to talk to you about something that is potentially quite a bigger issue and a lot more of a serious one for some people. Toxic behaviour in the crochet community. Crochet should be a source of comfort, happiness, relaxation, and yet it can really bring out the worst in some people. From gatekeeping to cruel criticism, resentment of some pattern designers, pattern theft or supposed pattern theft, and massive, open, scolding judgment of what are really quite innocent choices that some crocheters make. So today I want to chat about those issues, the psychology behind them, and how we as crocheters can combat those toxic traits in other people and potentially in ourselves as well. We have to start with yarn choice judgment because that is such a big thing. I must admit that I was quite shocked when the first few times that I came across this as an issue, when I had used acrylic yarn for patterns that I'd created and put out there for free on what was at the time a very little website of mine, and then I had people coming and criticising me for the fact that I'd used acrylic yarn, either because they perceived it as like a cheaper, more basic option, because they didn't like the feel and texture of it, or just because they had a generalised judgment on the using of acrylic yarn. Now, there are some absolutely fair, ethical and moral criticisms of pretty much any type of yarn fibre that you could choose to use. However, some people very much seem to build it into a part of their personality in order to openly judge other people who make different choices. We can go back to our in-group, out-group theory here with people who sort of assign themselves the yarn snob title or the budget crocheter title, and that being a part of how they identify themselves within crochet as a collective. However, a lot of the time it does just seem to come from, I like this thing, so I think you should too, and if you don't, I'm not a big fan of what you're doing. And that in turn obviously leads to a lot of people feeling bad about a project that 5 minutes ago they were really proud of. I have to bring this up because I don't hear it talked about enough. I feel quite frequently see people criticising crocheters for producing patterns when they're relatively new to crochet. This is not to say that they are criticising someone because their pattern was written in a way that wasn't comprehensible, or because their pattern was bad, or anything like that. They just had a visceral reaction to the fact that this person had been doing crochet for 6 months and was confident enough to put a pattern out there. And it absolutely was something that many years ago was aimed at me. Now obviously, well over a decade later, you can criticise me for a lot of things, but you can't criticise me for being new, but I still see it hurled at other people as an objection to them having the gall to produce a pattern at all. Experienced crocheters seem to somehow feel threatened by newcomers, particularly when they're monetizing their patterns. They use sort of an expertise bias to claim that only years of practice grant them the right to charge money, basically using this as a justification to maintain their perceived place at the top of an imaginary crochet hierarchy that I don't think actually exists. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I've just missed the hierarchy. You tell me, do you think it's there? I don't think it is. I think we're all individual craftspeople just doing a thing and hopefully having fun, and maybe occasionally making enough money that we can buy a little bit more yarn. And if you're good at something, if you're talented, if you are an artistic person in general who has managed to put together something new, why not share it? As long as it's done in a way that other people can understand, go for it. Pattern test it, especially if you're new. But why not? Why this criticism of new crocheters? That grinds my gears. I have been crocheting for a while. I have got a lot of designs that I've put out there, so it is probably no surprise at all to hear that sometimes people rip them off. From the people who have copied my entire pattern with all the illustrations, copied and pasted it and put it into a different website, to people who have taken the idea of my pattern and very much ripped it off with a little bit of spun, as we call it, so they've changed the words but the meaning's still the same, content around it. And in regards to people who have websites like mine that are blogs that are free to read, where they've put their own free pattern, but actually it's mine, there is a way that you can go through Google and you can say, hey, this person's copied and pasted my page. here's my original page, here's theirs. And most of the time, if you do that through Google, they will do what's called de-indexing it. And that means that that copy will no longer appear in the search results. I used to try sending these people a message when they've done that and go, hey, that's mine, please take it down. In my experience, mostly that message was ignored. So there was no point in doing that. If someone is so blatant as to copy and paste your entire thing, they're not going to listen to a friendly message. Just go to Google, ask them to take it out of the search results, and then hopefully no one's going to see it anyway. The one that really got to me relatively recently was someone messaged me to let me know that my pattern had been ripped off and was being sold on Etsy. This was a pattern that I give away for free, and someone had gone onto Etsy and they'd made their own design with my Labrador as the basis with some little accessories, and they were charging money for it. I have a lot of problems with this. Firstly, they didn't ask me to use my original pattern, and it is my pattern for the sort of basic dog, but they've also used my photographs from my pattern, which is free, within their paid pattern. I tried to go through Etsy and report this, and I've tried it twice now, and both times they've said that I've failed and given the wrong information. I don't really know what more information they want from me, and I've tried to stick a pin in it and not let it bother me, but as you can probably tell, it's a hard one to let go. That's annoying. But this is something that on various scales you're going to keep seeing in the world of crochet and crafting and creativity. It's a really hard thing to nail down the copyright side of it. And sometimes people are going to take your stuff. You just have to internalize it and let it live as a tiny ball of rage in your soul. I don't think that's what people are meant to do, but that's the route I'm going down. Anyway, actual pattern theft, you can see sad times. Anyone who's experienced this as well, it's not my favorite thing. But it does happen, and it is a really toxic thing within the crochet community. So why does it happen? I think some of the time it happens through people who've given themselves the moral license to do it anyway. They have used moral licensing. They justify the theft by saying that the designer charges too much, or it was really basic and, you know, anyone could have thought of it anyway. They give themselves this sort of spurious surface level reason why it's okay, and they do it. And I suspect that the person on Etsy who's produced the pattern has justified it to themselves in a number of ways. They've gone, well, it's only this part of it, I've done all the other parts. They've given themselves this moral justification that actually doesn't take away from the fact that that was mine. I also think that when it comes to websites that are built either through stealing other people's designs like mine, and this is way more common than you would realize, the sites that have my designs on often have numerous other designers' patterns on them as well, that they just think, well, it doesn't matter, and they're just justifying it by going, well, I'm just making money, I'm just making a living, and it's probably no skin off their nose. There must be justification in there somewhere, but it's hard to see, and I think that it leads on to the next problem, which is presumed pattern theft. And this is a thing that I think that we have all, maybe, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, as pattern designers occasionally gone, hey, that was mine, or was it? It's very similar. And sometimes, and I have seen this on Instagram a few times now, someone is very upset because they perceive that someone has stolen their pattern, when in fact it's just a similar design. Now, it's harder when it comes to toys, I think, to accidentally make the same thing. But when it comes to garments and blankets and stuff like that, there is, to an extent, with the basic stitches and setups, a limited number of ways for some things that you could create something. And occasionally someone has perhaps come up with the same idea independently using the same combination of stitches. But it's very difficult then to know, have they stolen it or haven't they? And if in doubt, what to do? And in those situations, probably approaching the designer from a place of kindness and empathy, and maybe we've had crossed wires here, is the best way to start off and have a chat about it. But some people, going guns blazing, get really furious straight away and drag other people into it, and it blows up into this big social media storm. And I try really hard to avoid these because I like facts, and you don't get a lot of facts on social media. But sometimes someone has a position of authority on social media, so they have, say, many millions of people following them, and they perceive that a wrong has been done to them by someone who is a smaller person on social media, maybe barely on social media at all. And once the big person has said something about it, the smaller follower count person then becomes, maybe accidentally, maybe slightly deliberately, inundated with some really nasty messages from people who are trying to support the bigger person, but perhaps misdirecting or over enthusiastically giving their opinions to someone who is essentially now being bullied for having accidentally made a similar thing to somebody else. And I appreciate that you probably want examples at this point, and I'm not going to share them for a couple of reasons. Firstly, that's not my fight. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want hate sent in either direction. And also, the title of this section is like potential pattern theft. It might have happened. I just perceive that maybe in some of these instances it didn't actually. It's a tricky one. I think that I could talk about that alone actually for a very long time, so we'll probably pause that one here. But it's, yeah, potential pattern theft and actual pattern theft are some interesting crossovers. We're filming in a different location today, and you can probably hear some weird noises in the background because I have some people that I need to keep company. Can you say hello? My name's Tango. I love you. But yes, the next one is probably the one that upsets me the most, and it is criticizing people's designs for no reason. Now, this is not a section on if you bought a pattern and it's crap and you've not been able to follow it. This is when someone holds up to the camera and shows off a thing that they're proud of, and then someone writes underneath, well, that's really basic, or that looks like you could have made it in half an hour, or you should have used a different color change method. When people put themselves out there and share their designs, I don't know about everybody. A lot of people are thicker skinned than me, but for me, every single time, and there've been many dozens of times, every single time I am showing you a piece of myself that on some level I probably would have rather kept quiet and private. For the most part, I share my designs for free. I share the patterns for free. I do have PDFs of some of them, but vastly predominantly they are free. And I'm sharing them so that you can make it and have fun too. And hopefully visit my website and read the pattern on there for free. And then I get like a tiny amount of money through advertising on the side of the page. But they're free patterns. And when someone comes and criticizes what I've made, that cuts deep. And I've been doing this for a long time now. So whilst I can, on the surface, pretend that I don't care about your opinion, even though I do, when I see this done to new designers or newer designers or just people who you can just see feel really nervous to show it, it's so unnecessary, it's so toxic, it's so mean. Why am I seeing this so often? The way that some people treat other people for having made designs is bizarre to me. There is a woman on Instagram who makes animals that are combined with food. They are the coolest and cutest things in the universe. No way I could ever have come up with designs like that. And even she gets snarky comments under her things sometimes. And I'm looking at them like, what? If you don't like what someone's doing, particularly if you just don't like that style, like whimsical, adorable food animals, just move on. Just look at something else. When you stop and you comment underneath someone's Instagram reel, like, that's a bit rubbish, do you know what you're doing? You are telling Instagram that this is the type of content you want to see because you've interacted with it, and it's gonna show you more of that stuff. If you don't want to see it, just keep scrolling. Just move on. You're not going to stop someone making adorable, cute things by telling them you don't like their adorable, cute things. All you're going to achieve is probably just making them feel a bit sad in that moment. And that's just mean. That's just toxic. Why are we doing it? And for so many of these things that I have talked for far too long about today, why are we doing it is such a good question. And I think probably it's a combination of factors. Some people are just mean. Like, you know, in the grand proportion of the world, which there are many people in it, some people are mean. As a kitten on my glasses. We love kittens, we don't want them on our glasses. So, in the grand scheme of things, some people are mean. And yeah, a percentage of people are mean. Some people under my videos, I just have to block and move on. I get personal comments occasionally about my appearance, which is not relevant to crochet. Like, this is not a makeup beauty channel, clearly. This is that I don't need that. And I can just block that and move on because I don't have space in my head for that. But when you're criticizing my crochet, which is like the thing on this channel, that's a little bit harder to do. And there are ways of saying things to people that I actually think some people just need a bit more practice with. Maybe they've got some kind of psychological insecurity that's really making them want to verbally, outrageously reinforce this in-group, out-group thing. And if you have an opinion that you want to share on somebody's design that you actually think like has an ethical or useful side to it, there are ways of saying that to the person which are less offensive. It's the whole compliment sandwich thing that you learn when you're a kid, you know? That's so cute. Have you considered maybe having a go with bamboo yarn in future? I heard that it might be a bit better for the environment. Can't wait to see what you come up with next. And yeah, the person reading it, they know you're making a compliment sandwich, but it just feels a bit nicer than someone going, you shouldn't use acrylic, it's got plastic in it, you're going to kill all the birds in the ocean, and you're clearly a hateful person that doesn't care about the environment, and why are you even posting this, and I hate you. There's a difference in message, and it's not hard to be nice, but sometimes you do need to take a step back and detach yourself from the situation and just go, before I press return, what am I trying to achieve here? Is it just to make someone feel bad, or are you actually trying to be helpful? And I'm sure that the mean people of the internet are not watching this video. Like, you clicked away quite a long time ago from this video, you're not seeing this part of the video. I'm not for you, and that is fair enough. But I do think that reframing their question or their point and just taking a moment to consider whether it's necessary would make a big difference to how nice people's experiences were sharing their designs and their projects that they've worked on in crochet. And ask yourself, am I commenting to be helpful or informative, or am I just trying to make myself feel superior? But which of these behaviors do you see? Do you agree that these are toxic traits, or do you think it's completely fine to slam people down into the ground with your views on how terrible their crochet is? I think you can tell which side of the fence I'm sitting on, and I'm firmly planted there. But let me know. I'd love to chat about this in the comments section with you. And happy crocheting. And try not to listen to the haters, yeah? They suck.